Take us back to the opportunity you got to say, I'm going to go participate in this clinical trial.
It wasn't a matter of if I was going to get the vaccine, it was a matter of when. So I really felt privileged to be able to participate.
You go through the clinical trial, you're thinking nothing's going to happen. What happens?
Nobody was being believed when they were going into the ERs and saying, look, my legs aren't working. I got a shot 3 days ago. What's the problem? This federal government is now forcing OSHA to force the public to get their shots. But at the same time, we have this study going on that's confirming that there are some very concerning neurological complications to the COVID vaccines. We know for a fact that Fauci knew about this study because he personally met with 2 vaccine injured.
Is there any cure to what you're going through right now?
No, there is no cure. My condition will continue to decline until I pass away.
How much progress is being made for holding some of these guys accountable?
The laws are continuing to strip away the rights of the American people and give our rights to pharmaceutical companies and big corporations that want nothing more than for us to go away and die quietly. One of those threads should be investigated and those people should be held to account. This will happen again if we don't face this and address this now.
So imagine you're a mother, you're very active, your husband's a chemist, PhD, your sister's an OBGYN, your family filled with nurses, all your kids, both of them have been vaccinated to whatever the laws are, and that's what you've done, you believe in it. And it's November 4th, a day after election, AstraZeneca is looking for clinical trial volunteers. I'm wanting to go out there and do the vaccine. You know, it's fine, I'll do it because I believe in this stuff. You go do it, your name is Brienne Dressen. Immediately, you have symptoms. So bad that you go to NIH and you become the first case at NIH to actually check on you. They bring you in. They're trying to find out what's going on to your body, the reactions that you're having, and you're with them for months. And then eventually, while you're going through this, your story comes out publicly. ABC puts it out there July of 2021, I believe. Gets 7+ million views. It's still on. It was never taken down. And everyone's going around saying, why is this case? And then they start an organization called React 19 where 36,000 other people come and find out and learn that there's more people that are going through this. And then eventually, you become the first person in America to sue AstraZeneca. And AstraZeneca just recently decided to kind of drop their COVID-19 vaccine because they said there's not that much of a demand for it. And we sit down and we have a conversation with it. Very interesting. While I'm talking to them, I'm like, her and Kyle Warner, who's a former mountain biker athlete, and he had his own issue that he's dealing with. But while I'm going through this, I'm looking for patterns and signs. You know, it's like, oh, these guys are anti-vaccine. They're this. And the arguments that are made, why would a person that took the vaccine be an anti-vaxxer? If a person that took many different questions were brought up. Some of them maybe you haven't thought about lately. But I thought it was important for us to go through it. I want to learn a little bit more about AstraZeneca. And we even get into AstraZeneca's relationship now with China, with what they're doing to China. Wait till you hear what the president of AstraZeneca said to the Chinese folks when he went there. Just a lot of questions. As a father of 4, I'm curious. If you're somebody that's still curious about what's going on, you want to get to the bottom of it as well and learn more about it, I think today's podcast with Brienne and Kyle will reveal a lot. And hopefully I'm not a doctor. I'm not making any recommendations. There isn't any absolutes. This is what's going on. That's what's going on. This is purely another story to be told for you. Just like me, if you're curious, go do your own due diligence to see what you can do to make better decisions for you and your family. But having said that, enjoy this podcast with Brienne and Kyle.
Did you ever think you would make it? I feel I'm so close I could taste sweet victory. I know this life meant for me. Yeah, why would you bet on Goliath when we got bet David? Valuetainment, giving values contagious. This world of entrepreneurs, we get no value to hate. And how they run, homie, look what I become. I'm the one.
Okay, so we have an interesting story here for you today. Why? Because, during the peak of COVID, if you uploaded a video, doctors, if you uploaded a video and shared a story about somebody who had a vaccine injury, this, and, whatever it was, they would take you down. Be careful with this. Be careful. You anti-vaxxer. You don't do this. You don't do that. One of the only videos that stayed up was a video with an interview done with Brianne Dressen. This was an ABC interview And it got 7.3 million views. This was uploaded. Think about July 10th of 2021. This is the peak. We're in it, right? And it's showing how, this individual we all learned about, Brienne Dressen, who went in to do clinical trial, which she'll give her story here today. And then immediately she had a reaction to it. And this was the AstraZeneca vaccine shot that we were talking about at the time. And then it got so bad that they had to report on it. We learned about it. They showed it. And then everybody started saying, wait a minute, if this is stained, is there any credibility behind it? And then, it's not like she's somebody was against it. She's like, yeah, I'll do the clinical trial. I don't have a problem with that. Think about it. If somebody agrees to do a clinical trial, why would you have a problem with it? You don't really have a problem with it, right? You're going and saying, yeah, I'm good. What are we going to do with this? And then that experience has led into them doing what they've done. AstraZeneca now is taking the COVID-19 vaccine out because of lack of interest. That's the word they use. Like, there's not really that much interest for it as well. Is that really the case? There's some numbers you're hearing that the company is now facing legal action, primarily in the UK, where around 75 claimants have initiated proceedings. Anyways, we're going to go into all that stuff. Can they do anything about it? Can they not? So she's here with us. And then at the same time, you have to hear how much the medication now costs for her to take and how much she's being helped by, AstraZeneca to support with that. And then at the same time, we have Kyle Warner here as well. He had a similar but a different experience. He's a mountain biker known for his competitive spirit. We almost got into a fight earlier, arm wrestling, but we kind of had to, set it aside and get serious here with you. And he has a complete different story as well, similar to this. So Brienne and Kyle, it's great to have you on a podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us here.
Of course. So I'm going to start off with you, if you don't mind. For the audience that doesn't know, this is the video I saw. I'll show you the video, and then I want to kind of hear it from your perspective on what happened. Rob, just play the first 90 seconds if you could, the first 2 minutes if you could. Go ahead.
In our coronavirus coverage, a Utah woman and
3
Utah
years ago.
senator are teaming up to get some answers. This comes after a group claims they've experienced life-altering injuries that they believe are from the vaccine. While the symptoms haven't been officially linked to the vaccine by the CDC, some are convinced that they're related. Now, I spoke with that woman to find out what she's been experiencing and why she's now asking the public for help.
There's no question that the vaccines do save lives.
Brianne Dressen is a preschool teacher in Saratoga Springs who participated in the AstraZeneca clinical trial back in November.
We all knew that some people were going to draw the short straw.
And that includes her. She got her shot on November 4th, and she says she hasn't been the same since.
Immediately, within an hour, I had tingling down my arm. And by the time I got home, my vision was blurry and double.
But that wasn't all.
My sensitivity to sound might have become so severe that I had to have earmuffs on all the time and sunglasses.
She says that's when things took a turn for the worse.
So I had this weeks-long neurological decline. Nobody knew what was going on. I called the test clinic several times. Finally, 2 days later, they had me come in and they did a neurological exam and they said, "Oh, it looks like you have MS."
Her symptoms continued to worsen, and just before Thanksgiving, she says her legs stopped working, sending her to the ER. But after running several MRIs, CAT scans, and lumbar punctures, nothing.
I spent the next several months of my life trapped in my room by myself, completely alone and in silence. Even the sound of my husband's pants swishing was too much for my ears. We put towels on the windows, trying to make it darker. And it was a nightmare.
No answers, no relief, no hope.
I missed out on Christmas. I didn't buy my kids a single Christmas present. I've missed out on months of their lives.
She spent months teaching herself how to walk, eat, and form sentences again, all while she traveled near and far to try and get some answers.
The hospital didn't know what was going on. None of the neurologists that I saw knew what was going on.
She says she's talked with others who are dealing with the same symptoms
Pause
after
it
getting
right there,
their
Rob. When's the last time you watched this?
It's been a while.
How does it feel right now watching it?
It's kind of a little bit of a flashback, to be honest.
You know, and the reason why I wanted to start this way is because when I watched this, I went there, right? So I remember the first time watching this.
Yeah.
We're like, you know what? What's the first line they played of you? You said, there's no question the vaccine does save some lives.
Right.
That's not somebody who would say something like that who would be against it, right? So it's not like you come in bashing it or anything like that, but you experience it. So take us back to one, the opportunity you got to say, hey, babe, you're married, you got 2 kids, you got a family. I'm going to go participate in this clinical trial. What was the offer? How did they approach you? How did that happen? And how did you make the decision?
It was really common sense for me because, you know, my family has several medical professionals and a few of them are on the front lines and they saw horrible things during the pandemic. And so it wasn't a matter of if I was going to get the vaccine, it was a matter of when. And I wanted to be part of the solution. So I really felt privileged to be able to participate in this clinical trial. The AstraZeneca clinical trial company, it was called Velocity Clinical Research. They called me.
What a name.
Yeah, right? And
Like speed. Let's get it down. Come on, Velocity.
yes, and that's exactly what happened with all of the trials, right? They were all Operation Warp Speed.
That's
it
right.
wasn't called Warp Speed for just any reason.
Right.
These clinical trials that are supposed to take years were streamlined in a matter of months, and that right there should give anybody a little bit of pause. But I wasn't thinking that way. I was wanting to make sure that I was helping us all get back to normal life. So I signed up. They did a very thorough health evaluation. They wanted to know everything from the moment I was born up until I got my shot, my vaccination record, you know, any complications with my pregnancies, everything. And after that, we signed a contract and I went in and got my shot. In the contract, they were very thorough. They wanted to make sure that I understood what my obligations were, which was I just needed to give them very, you know, detailed updates on how I was doing after the shots. And in return, they would provide support medically and financially if there was a problem.
Oh, so they did say if there was a complication, they would support you medically and financially.
Correct. In writing.
That's in writing.
In writing.
Okay. Oh, so at this point, when you're saying my family medical, who in your family is involved in the space and at what levels?
So my sister is a OBGYN.
Okay.
And her experience first and foremost, you know, with the masks shortage was really concerning to me. And we helped round up all these masks in the community, over 1,000 masks. We actually ended up having to smuggle them into the corporate hospital systems because the hospitals wouldn't give them to the medical professionals that needed them. But then she would, you know, call me and tell me these horrible stories about women with their placentas clotting and their babies would die. And right then and there, I knew that I needed to do everything I could to not drive, you know, to make a harder situation for her. And for my other family members, I've got several nurses and others.
In the family.
Yeah.
So when you're going through this, is it, hey, sis, I'm thinking about doing this, you know, or is it, no, babe, I want to be a part of it because I feel like I'm doing an injustice if I don't. I want to be a part of it and be part of the solution. How did that, I want to be part of the clinical trial happen?
It really was just common sense. We had a couple of friends that were medical professionals that had gone through the Moderna clinical trial and did just fine.
Got it.
And
Okay.
they were like, hey, you should sign up for this trial.
So you're not even thinking about it.
Didn't even think about it. I had never had any
I got
problem
it.
with any vaccine.
Right. Makes sense.
So it just, yeah.
Did you get paid for it or no paid?
They were supposed to pay me money and they didn't pay me that money either.
What is the clinical, like how much do they typically pay for
It's
a
like
clinic?
$1,200, $1,500.
And they never even paid that clinical trial money.
Well, they wired me $590 without my consent later. But yeah, so I did get $590.
But not the other money that they owe you. So
No.
now, here's interesting. You said you did the clinical trial on November 4th,
Yes.
2020.
Yes.
You know what's unique about that date?
It's the election.
It's a day after the election.
Yes.
This is Wednesday.
Yes, I remember. I was sitting there looking on my phone while I was waiting for them to come and give me the shot, and I was looking at the tallies. I remember it as clear as day.
So now you know what happens November 5th, I believe. That's when Moderna, Johnson & Johnson, or Pfizer, one of the three came out and they said they officially have the vaccine. They announced it 2 days after election. So third is election. Fourth, you take the clinical trial. And fifth is when one of these guys comes on saying they have it. Rob, if you can find out who was the first vaccine that was ready, I think it's Moderna that came up saying they were ready, and they announced it November 5th. It could be Demo or Johnson & Johnson or Pfizer, but you can check. Okay, so you go through the clinical trial. Obviously, you explained the video, but I kind of want to hear it from you now. You leave. You're thinking nothing's going to happen. Hour later, what happens?
Yeah, so an hour later, within that first hour, I was on my way home from the clinical trial company, and the tingling started in the same arm as my injection went down. And it felt just like you would, like when you fall asleep on a limb and it's numb and it's really, that painful pins and needles. That's what it felt like. But there was no reason for my arm to have any circulatory constriction whatsoever. So I thought it was strange. And within several days, that had spread from my one arm through my chest to my other arm, down through my legs. And I still experience that pins and needles electrical sensation every minute of every day to this day.
Worse or better?
The same. Actually, it's worse than when it began. And it was so severe, and that's why I was pulling the waterworks in the video, because it was that bad. It was so bad that I literally couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. The only thing I could do was just try to control my breathing. And I lived that way for months with this sensation. But what we've learned now through our advocacy is that actually this paresthesia is a relatively common thing when it comes to neurological reactions to the COVID vaccines from all brands. And it's actually a precursor to neuropathy. So it's not something anybody wants. It's not something that you should take, as a, it's not a big deal. It'll go away. It doesn't go away. And it's a sign of something far worse going on in the body.
Now, if you're going through it, if something that happens in your family, we all get obsessed with it, right? But we had twins. We go to the doctor says, you guys are going to have twins. We're like, you got to be kidding me. No, we already have 3 kids. Now we're having twins. Yes. Okay. 9 weeks later, one of the kids, 70% chance is going to be Down syndrome. Boom. Now reality hits. You're serious. Yes. You guys have to be ready that this could be the case with your child. For a month straight, my wife and I, all we're watching is raising kids of Down syndrome, other kids, et cetera, et cetera. So we're going through it. It's heavy on the family. We haven't had the conversation with the kids to prep them on what it's going to look like. 12th week, we go in, and they said one of them didn't make it. We don't know which one didn't make it. You still have to wait to find out till the baby is born. Baby is born. Brooklyn, she was the healthy one. The son that didn't make it. But during that 1 month, life was 180 for us. You can't really publicize it. It's private that we're going through it. But we try to search other communities that are going through it to learn ourselves, right? When you go through something like this, you're trying to find out how many other people are going through it. Based on your research, your family's research, what have you noticed as a trend? Was it specific to AstraZeneca? Is it also Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson, Moderna? And if it is, one out of how many are you noticing are having similar symptoms?
I genuinely wish I could tell you it was just AstraZeneca. I do. Unfortunately, it's happening with all of the brands, this specific type of neurological reaction. And through our advocacy work at React 19, where we have over 36,000 COVID vaccine injured Americans in the United States alone, the majority of these people have a strong symptom constellation that looks like this type of syndrome. That's this declining neurological condition where your nerves are slowly being attacked and eaten away by your immune system. So it's not anything anybody wants. And it does happen to a far lesser degree from COVID, but there is several research projects going on right now, and we're doing one in particular with Yale, with Akiko Iwasaki and Harlan Krumholtz, And we found that there is a immunological signature between long COVID and COVID vaccine injuries. And the difference is COVID vaccine injuries have a far stronger proponent for neuropathy than long COVID.
Got it. And you said a lot less with COVID. What did you mean by that when you said a lot less with COVID?
So long COVID does have neurological complications, but as I'm sure you've understood, it's, you have the issues with the scent, the smell, the brain fog, the fatigue, these painful nerve damage type issues. They do happen, but it's not nearly as prevalent.
The effects of that are more the vaccine, not the COVID.
Correct.
Not the actual virus is what you're differentiating.
Correct.
Okay, I got that. Okay, so the 36,000 that have participated in your organization that have also gone through some injuries, is there any cure to what you're going through right now? Is there anything that can be done about it?
That's kind of a mixed bag. I definitely am not cured. My condition will continue to decline until I pass away. So I'm trying to make the most of the functional facets that I have now while my body is, while we're able to have a conversation now until, I end up back in a wheelchair and things get worse. So no, there is no cure. We have seen with people that are younger, the likelihood of them recovering is far higher, so long as they don't have a significant autoimmune component. So these people that are younger, if they take control of their healing with, stop eating American food and all of these other things that we just do as Americans that is not good for anyone, then their bodies are able to kind of recreate itself so then it can have things that it needs to repair itself. With older people, in the 30s, 40s, 50s, it's definitely a different game for sure. And so that's when we bring in a lot of heavy duty medications. And a lot of these protocols that we know about actually started at the National Institutes of Health. And these people don't know about it because the NIH has not been informing people of it.
Tell me more.
So after my injury, and that was November of 2020, my husband's a PhD chemist. He started reaching out to scientists all over the world. Anyone that postulated that the spike protein could do this to the body through the vaccine in a similar way that COVID was doing, he contacted them all. And one of them was a researcher named Avindra Nath. He's directly under Fauci at the National Institutes of Health. And this was January 11th, 2021. The NIH reached out to us and started a study on serious adverse events to the COVID vaccines. I was patient number 1 in that study. I was flown out, given thorough evaluation, testing, and treatments there.
When is this? What's the date?
So this finished in June of 2021. So the study they started onboarding people in January. And we know the first, I want to say 12, 13 patients that were onboarded. So they were actively engaged with several people that were seriously adversely affected by all the brands. Just to be specific, it wasn't just AstraZeneca. It was Pfizer, Moderna, J&J, and AstraZeneca. Starting in January, really in-depth, we were on emails with Peter Marks, head of biologics at the FDA, and this is in March of 2021, with NIH lead researchers, Janet Woodcock, head of the FDA, and all of them together are promising us that they will collect the data and that they will disclose this to the public appropriately. They literally ask us to give them some more time before we publicize this. And because we were giving them we were sending patients to the NIH privately, like these seriously adversely affected people like Maddie DeGarry, who's a clinical trial participant who's 12 years old, and she's got a feeding tube still and is still in a wheelchair. We were sending them these critically, injured people, and they were helping them privately. They were picking up the phone and privately advocating for us with our home physicians who at the time were doubting everyone, right? Because the mantra was, these vaccines are going to save all of us. Just get the shots in your arms. Everybody just shut up and do it, right? And so nobody was being believed when they were going into the ERs in the hospital system saying, look, my legs aren't working. I got a shot 3 days ago. What's the problem? And so the NIH was privately helping people and saving lives one by one individually. But then still publicly, they were saying nothing.
Was your experience a positive one with NIH? And
It was totally positive. That's what's so bizarre. Like they literally, when I went there, I felt more validated there than I had anywhere else.
So positive experience with NIH. You have documentation of all the communication with them.
Hundreds of pages.
Email, text, calls, all of it.
Yes.
Okay. And did they ever release that report publicly or no? Has that ever been?
Yeah, so it's interesting because they all of a sudden stopped collecting our data. They stopped the study.
When was that, in June of 2021?
It was in the fall of 2021. So if you think about when the mandates were ramping up, so how inconvenient would this be that they were like, okay, federal government is now forcing OSHA to force the public to get their shots. But at the same time, we have this study going on at the National Institutes of Health that's confirming that there are some very concerning neurological complications to the COVID vaccines going on.
Did ABC approach you about doing that video, or did you approach ABC?
We approached them, and actually every single one of the photos in that video were from hospital clips from the NIH, and you can actually see it in a couple of them. There's the mark of the NIH on the pillow.
That's while you're at their hospital.
Yes.
Can you find that, Rob, with the NIH?
And they self-edited this one, obviously. They self-censored it. Yeah, so...
Oh, it's the NIH. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So positive experience with NIH. They're being overly helpful to find out what's going on. Sincere. Your experience is all great. June, the what is it called? You said June is done, right? When they start doing the research.
That's when they started wrapping it up. Yeah.
They started wrapping it up. They started in January, and in July, did you approach ABC because that's when they dropped that's when they stopped following up, or was it a little bit after July when they stopped following up?
It was a little bit after July, and then they cut everybody off.
And did that video prompt them to be pissed off almost to say, oh, you want to go public, we're not going to help you? Do you think any thought there?
That would be nice if we knew any of that, but of course we don't. But I really genuinely think that it wasn't because we started speaking up, because we told them that we were going to go public.
When did they know that?
In July.
Okay. And what did they say to you? What did they say to you?
We commend you for your advocacy. Word for word. That's what they said.
How high ranking of an NIH person said that?
Anthony Fauci's understudy, Avindra Nath, directly under Fauci. We know for a fact that Fauci knew about this study because he personally met with 2 vaccine injured while they were there. So he knew what was going on with this study.
While you were there, did you ever meet him or no?
No.
Okay.
I did.
So this is who you're talking about, right? This is
Yeah, Dr. Nath. He's
Yeah.
a super nice guy.
And then all of a sudden, they all disappeared. There were 2 research understudies that were in some support groups with us, and all on the same day, they left the support groups. They stopped responding to us, and it was just like the doors just closed. All of a sudden, this backdoor access that we knew and we had used for months to get people care, to literally save their lives, all of a sudden shut. So then we got together, right? And we said, well, this is a little bit of BS. What do we do? And we decided we need to start speaking out. And so then we started calling Science Magazine, which actually ran a story on it, and a couple of other outlets, and said, look, NIH is not telling people what actually they know about the COVID vaccines. So we started hitting them hard. So then in the fall, they kind of quietly snuck the research onto a preprint server. So there is a study that's sitting on a preprint server from these lead researchers from the NIH about the study. So now they can say, well, yeah, no, it's out there. It's just, we have it there.
What's the significance of what you just said? The way you're saying it, why is it not a big deal, the fact that they've done that?
Well, it's interesting because usually with any kind of significant research at the NIH, any research they complete, it ends up on an actual medical journal like the BMJ, New England Journal of Medicine, right? Their stuff doesn't just magically end up on a little server in a corner that hasn't been verified. But then also they always do press releases. And this actually came out in a FOIA request that we put in, that Francis Collins, so the head of the NIH at the time, is on an email string with the publicity office. And both of them together are talking about whether or not to publicize this study specifically. And of course, in the email string, they say, yes, we've talked about this with Tony. Yep. So, and of course, Tony is what they would say for Fauci, because they wanted to try to avoid all of this coming public. And of course, they obviously decided against publicizing the study.
This is very interesting to see, from their Kyle. Go for it.
Oh, I'm just saying it's the tip of the iceberg. You haven't gotten the good stuff yet.
Well, tell me, did you want to say something?
No. I'll let this keep running.
Okay.
But yeah, there's a lot more.
So from there, at what point did you? And by the way, just to qualify this, you have 2 kids. How old are your kids?
They are now 9 and 11.
9 and 11. When they were 2, 3, a year old, did you follow the guidelines for vaccine?
Yes.
Everything that...
Fully vaccinated. We were all fully vaccinated.
Fully vaccinated.
Fully vaccinated.
Okay. So it's not like you're coming from a family where it's natural, we don't do anything, we don't touch the vaccine. So you're somebody that's from the space, your nurses in your family, your sister's an OBGYN, your dad, your husband's a PhD chemist. You believe in the... right? In the greatness of what,
all in.
Yeah. So, all right. So what leads you to saying, you know what? We're talking about it, NIH, we're not getting a lot of follow-up. We're at a point right now, we're going to file a lawsuit. What got to that point of wanting to sue AstraZeneca? Because you are patient number 1 to sue AstraZeneca, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Correct.
What led to that?
Well, as disturbing as how the government mismanaged this, the drug company and their management of my case is just as bad. As soon as I reported my injury, it's as though the drug company couldn't get away from me fast enough. So those obligations to support us financially if there was a problem, help us medically, they did neither. And that started on day 1. So the test clinic kept reassuring us that payment was coming, and they were sending us to all of these different research, cutting edge testing facilities, right, to figure out what was going on in my body. Because I wanted to know, but the test clinic that was hired by the drug company, they also wanted to know. And so it was a lot of medical bills really fast, right? And it became very apparent by the spring of 2021, so 5-6 months into this, that no money was coming. We had to refinance our house. My sister was nice enough to hire a nanny, and these medical bills just kept piling up, and we kept literally begging them for help. There were 2 times that the drug company offered payment. The first one was from actually that news story that ran in July of 2021. And they, without my consent, wired $590 to my account. And then the second one was when a news story ran again. So it was once again to save face from public scrutiny. And that was in December of 2021. And they sent me a offer letter of $1,200. And that was to absolve them of all obligations for future payments and to also say that they had done nothing wrong.
And I believe it was an NDA too, right?
No, that one wasn't an NDA, which I had been trash talking them for a year, so I'm sure that wasn't going to do anything.
Got it. So this is the $12.43 and 30 cents or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Okay, which obviously that's a lot of money.
I know.
If we're living in the 20s, but today it's nothing, right? It's it's nothing. So now, at this point, with everything you're going through, what medication are you on? How much does that cost? Where are you getting the funds to pay for it? Because I know you're also probably on. I heard about the infusion that you're going through with $3,500 every 2 weeks, $7,000 a month. The other medication that I think it's $400,000, give or take, and your insurance company was able to negotiate for it to only cost $110,000 or $105,000 of medication. Walk me through what medication you're on and how AstraZeneca's helping you pay some of that cost.
AstraZeneca's been super helpful. They've been so helpful. $1,200
$1,200
helpful, which I didn't accept, by the way. Just, I thought my life was worth a little bit more than $1,200 from them. So yeah, so I'm on an immunoglobulin, and essentially what that is 1,000 people's immune cells in a bag, and it's healthy functioning cells. So if you do donate blood, thank you so much. If you're healthy, and especially if you're unvaccinated, please go donate, because I now need your immune cells to live. So basically what they do is they take these immune cells and they infuse it into your veins and basically dilute your malfunctioning immune system with good functioning cells. So then your immune system doesn't attack the nerves as much. So that's the first drug. So that one's the one that can cost anywhere from $100,000 to $400,000 a year.
What is it called? What is that called?
It's called IVIG.
IVIG. Okay.
And so, so that's the first one. The second one is another one that I'm going to be trying soon, and it's called rituximab. This is actually a drug that they use for cancer patients, and it wipes out all of your adaptive immune system. Your innate immune system is what you're born with. Your adaptive immune system is everything that you develop after, through your lifetime. So they're going to go in and basically hit the reset button on that one. And that is anywhere from $80,000 for 2 doses, upwards of $250,000 for 2 doses. And I have to get that every 6 months.
And you have to get that every 6 months.
Yes.
And then on the infusion part that you're doing, is that $3,500 every 2 weeks?
Yes.
And that one you're on right now?
For life.
For life, you have to do that?
For life.
Now, are you guys decamillionaires? Are you from a very wealthy family where you can afford this types of treatment?
My nerdy husband, totally loaded. I'm just saying.
Well, listen, Silicon Valley is filled with nerdy husbands that are totally loaded.
Yeah, that's true. Not mine.
Not yours. Okay, well, he seems like he loves his wife, and he's going above and beyond to support you. So sometimes that is priceless. But okay, so this is a real pain to make. It's not like you can afford it. So now, today, I saw 75, right? I saw 75 claimants have initiated proceedings. These claims involve severe side effects such as blood clots, specifically vaccine-induced thrombotic. The claimants are pursuing compensation under the Consumer Protection Act of 1987, the government-run vaccine damage payment scheme. The latter has a payout limit of $120,000 per claim, which many argue is insufficient for those who have suffered catastrophic injuries or lost family members. Now, for you, this is a clinical trial volunteer. So can their lawyers come up and say, nobody forced you to do this. This was your choice. You did this, and you knew what consequences you can face with this? Or what you said earlier is the fact that in the agreement states that if anything happens to you, they will support you.
Yeah, it's straight up contract law.
So that carries weight where you can get the money from them.
That's the whole purpose of this lawsuit. Because otherwise, in the U.S., you can't sue.
Got it.
Which that's what Kyle's for.
So then, Kyle, what I see here is the following. Largest pharmaceutical lawsuits ever settled. Okay, I'll go from 7 to 1. Merck, $950 million. This is 2011. It was marketed as painkiller. Vioxx for unapproved users. Vioxx was linked to an increased risk of heart attacks and strokes. They had to pay out nearly $1 billion. Abbott Laboratories, $1.5 billion in 2012. They agreed to pay this for promoting its drug. This is a bipolar product. I don't even know how to pronounce it, but it's a Depakote. It could be one of pronouncing it, for users not approved by the FDA, including the treatment of schizophrenia and controlling agitation and aggression in elderly dementia patients. $1.5 billion. Lilly, $1.4 billion. Johnson & Johnson, 2013, $2.2 billion. Takeda Pharmaceutical, 2015, $2.4 billion. Number 2, Pfizer in 2009, $2.3 billion. GlaxoSmithKline, GSK, $3 billion, 2012. That's the biggest one that's ever happened. I wonder how many people are sitting around wondering what's going to happen here, because the number of injuries that are now being reported, more and more people are finding each other. How much progress is being made for holding some of these guys accountable, if you can even hold them accountable, because there's some laws with immunity where they've protected themselves. Yeah. What kind of progress is being made?
Well, that's kind of what we've been trying to explore. So the last 4 months, I went to D.C. and have lived there lobbying on behalf of the vaccine injured and trying to meet with politicians to see, A, can we kind of repeal some of the PrEP Act provisions that would essentially open up them for liability and allow the free market to take place? Or B, can we try to get a bill passed that would compensate, so basically move the COVID vaccines into the vaccine injury program and allow people to get claims processed through that? The thing that sucks, though, is that we've been kind of going down this path, and the bill that we're advocating for has a projected cost of between $10 and $20 billion to compensate the existing 5,000 claims in the VICP, then to add the 10,000 claims from the CICP into the VICP, update it for inflation because it hasn't been touched since 1986. So it's $250,000 max pain and suffering and death settlement. So that is like $681,000 or somewhere around $680,000 in today's dollars.
What's CICP?
CICP is the countermeasure injury protection program or injury compensation program. And so countermeasures are things like anything kind of adjacent to a pandemic or an emergency. So for example, with the CICP, they're covering things like COVID-19 vaccines, the smallpox vaccine,
Got it.
monoclonal antibodies.
Public health emergencies and security dangers threaten our country. So that's kind of like countermeasures injury compensation program. To combat these threats, the government supports the development of countermeasures. Countermeasures of vaccine, medication, device, or items used to prevent, diagnose, or treat a public health emergency, which makes sense.
Yeah.
What is the VICP?
The VICP is the Vaccine Injury Compensation Program.
Got it.
But the thing about it is that these vaccines didn't get the official BLA approval, which is basically biologic licensing approval. So they are not eligible to be put into the vaccine injury program because they weren't technically approved products that we took. So they're making this argument that the vaccines that you guys took are non-approved, therefore they shouldn't be allowed into the VICP and they should be stuck in the CICP. However, the CICP in the history of the program has paid out 43 claims. 43. They've paid out 13 COVID-19 vaccine claims for a total of $48,000.
You're kidding me.
Biggest claim in America right now is just under $9,000 for myocarditis. The smallpox vaccine, there was a myocarditis claim there, $323,000. So if you have myocarditis from the smallpox vaccine, a $323,000 settlement. From COVID vaccine, the largest claim in America currently, $9,000. And that's as of June 1st.
Where is that story at? What you just pulled up, Rob? Can you pull that up?
HRSA data, HRSA, so health.
Wow.
It's basically, you can look up if you type in COVID-19 CICP claims, it'll pull up a spreadsheet. You can pull up all of them. So these are all of the covered countermeasure claims in the history of the CICP.
There it is. The myocarditis, you just said $323,000.
Yeah, and if you scroll down, then you'll see the COVID-19 ones because they're newer. So keep going. And then there's the COVID one. See that $9,000 one?
Wow.
So that's the biggest claim in America right now for the public.
Ever documented.
As of June 1st.
Okay.
And so what we do, if you get injured by this product, so I had a reaction to the Pfizer vaccine. I had myocarditis, pericarditis, which is basically heart inflammation. I was a pro athlete, so I was at risk because I'm a pro athlete. They're finding that, the healthier you are, maybe the more at risk you are of having a vaccine reaction because your immune system goes into hyperdrive. So for Brie, she has a condition called chronic demyelinating polyneuropathy, and her immune system is essentially going like this wire right here. There's a sheath concealing the cord, right? Her immune system is eating that sheath, and as it eats that sheath, she's experiencing nerve pain. And so her immune system is doing the damage. For me, I had mast cell activation syndrome and heart inflammation, again, caused by my immune system, which went into hyperdrive. So it's kind of like it puts your body into fight or flight, and you have to try to re-regulate, as she was saying. And so the immune globulin that she takes essentially dilutes her immune system so it's not able to attack her as badly. But her case, she's up and walking. We have several friends like Doug Cameron, who had a similar situation where it ate away the sheath and his spinal cord burst, so he's paralyzed. And Maddie DeGarry has her spinal cord, it's demyelinating more severely, and so she's stuck in a wheelchair.
Are these all part of the, well, maybe it's not, the 51 cases against AstraZeneca for $125 million, that lawsuit? Or no, these are separate lawsuits?
So like Doug was Johnson & Johnson, Maddie was Pfizer, so those are not included in those lawsuits.
Got it. Are you part of the 51 out of 125, or your lawsuit is separate?
Mine's separate because the other lawsuit is not brought in the United States.
That's purely UK. Got it.
Yeah. And so, Pat, the thing that's interesting is that CICP was never set up to deal with this. You have no right to an attorney, no right to due process. You file your claim. You have 1 year from the date of injection to build your case and file your claim. And if you get rejected, you have no right to an appeal. So for me, I waited the full year to accumulate as many medical bills as possible. I mailed it out on my 1-year anniversary date. It was postmarked 1 day late. And so after 1 year and 9 months of waiting, they sent me a rejection letter saying, you've been rejected on the basis of being late. So right now, the CICP, they've processed around 2,800 claims, and it has a 99.5% rejection rate.
99.5% rejection rate. Okay. So if...
One other funny thing, if you want. There's a thing called the American Rescue Plan Act, which is for federal employees. In the American Rescue Plan Act, this is from a Freedom of Information Request Act from Mark Hackett, they have paid out 186 COVID-19 vaccine claims out of 800, and they've paid out $1,760,000 to federal employees. So they have a 23% approval rate if you're a federal employee, whereas we have a 99.5% rejection rate as the public.
So if the testimony with Brienne Dressen and Kyle Warner is causing you to have some questions, you want to get in touch with them, you want to support what they're doing, you can officially ask them a direct question on Minect. All you have to do is click on that QR code, download the app, ask them any questions you may have, whether you're going through this personally, or you want to find a way to support, or you got additional questions. You can Minect them officially now on the app. Well, now, why would they set it up that way?
Well,
What's the motive?
It's interesting because the American Rescue Plan Act was essentially set up to help people that miss work or they have an injury from the COVID-19 vaccine. So through that Mark Hackett Freedom of Information Request Act, they were able to get how many were compensated for the vaccine injuries. And in there's a provision that says there's actually no proof of, like, burden of proof for those. So you file a claim, you get reimbursed for if you missed a day at work or if you had a more severe injury.
So I read in one of these articles, Rob, if you can find it, we were just talking about this earlier, the fact that AstraZeneca made a agreement with the government, the London High Court, whatever you want to call it, that if they do get sued, that any damages to the injured patients will be paid by taxpayers.
Yeah, same in America.
Right. Those are the four. But that's the one thing that AstraZeneca has in UK, right? If something happens, they're not paying anything out of their pocket. Taxpayers are.
Yeah.
And US is the same.
Well, it's the same because the CICP is taxpayer funded. So the countermeasures program is taxpayer funded. The vaccine injury compensation program, every vaccine dose that's given to people in America, 75 cents gets taken out and put into that program. Right now, it has a $4.3 billion surplus in that program, ready to help vaccine injured Americans. However, that program is very broken in the sense that there's 8 judges. They're called special masters. So right now they have 5,000 claims outstanding for non-COVID related ones. And there's only 8 people that hear those cases. And so they're just getting this massive backlog. So that's the bill, HR 5142 from Doggett, who's a House representative. They've been working on trying to remodernize that program and update the compensation, but that's a projected $10 to $20 billion cost. And essentially, the Democrats that we've talked to don't really want to be associated with it because it's vaccine related and it's kind of iffy. And then the Republicans don't want to spend the money. So we're just kind of stuck in this zone where the government has no accountability or no reason to help us. The pharma companies are protected. And basically no one wants to touch a hot potato. So we're just stuck in the middle.
You ever seen a movie, Flash of Genius? Mm-mm. You ever seen Flash of Genius? Both of you guys have to watch Flash of Genius this weekend because it's the story of, it's a true story of the man who invented the intermittent windshield wiper, okay? And he invents this, and he takes it and shares it with Chrysler, Ford Motor Company, all these guys. And he shows what he's invented because back in the days, rain, you're driving, you don't have a way of wiping the window, so everybody would drive in rain. So it's like, now that we have windshield wiper, nobody thinks about it. But imagine if you don't have it, you live in a place that rains a lot, Seattle. How many accidents would happen because of this? He invents it, he takes it to them. They said, nah, it's not really that big of a thing. You didn't invent it. We did this, we did that. I don't know how long it takes him to go through this lawsuit, the patent lawsuit. It takes 5, 10, 15, 20 years. It costs him his marriage. It costs him seeing his kids. It costs him friendships. But eventually he ends up getting paid some $20 million. It's a phenomenal story. And a reason why you made me think about this, let me read the last part, Rob, just go to the last paragraph. At trial, Kearns represents himself after attorney Gregory Lawson withdraws from the case. He's ran out of money. Wife's left him, he's got nothing left because Kearns refuses to settle The guy is not, I'm not settling with these guys. I want every damage you did to me. You cost me my life. Eventually, Kern's ex-wife and children support him in his endeavor. Then they come back. Toward the end of the trial, Ford offers Kearns a $30 million settlement, but without admitting wrongdoing. Kearns decides to leave his fate in the hands of the jury, who determines that Ford infringed in his patents, but that the infringement was not deliberate. The jury awards him $10.1 million. The closing credits indicate that Kearns later wins an $18.7 million judgment from Chrysler Corporation as well. Do you think these stories that we hear, 5,000 people that are being heard by 8 people, that's why it's backed up by, the results are not coming through. Biggest case so far was what, 8,900 and some change, out of all this, and even myocarditis was what, 323 or whatever the number was, all the way at the top, 8,962. Do you think this is going to be one of those cases where we're not going to get to the bottom of it for 5, 10, 15 years? Do you think this is going to be one of those things? Okay.
Yeah, I think there's kind of 2 things that could maybe happen. This is the most unlikely, but the government decides to take accountability for the wrongdoing and they do the right thing and help the people. Very unlikely, but that would be amazing. The other one is that we find evidence of willful fraud that repeals the PrEP Act immunity. So for people that don't know, the PrEP Act shields not only the pharma companies from lawsuits, it also shields the government from lawsuits. So the government came in, they shielded pharma and they shielded themselves.
You said the PrEP Act?
The PrEP Act.
I have it right here, Rob. Can you tell them what the PrEP Act is about?
Yeah. So, in the most basic sense, it just provides an immunity shield for pharma and for the government. The way that pharma kind of talks about it is, hey, we had this product that we weren't sure if it was ready or not yet. And the government came to us and said, Project Warp Speed, we need this product now. So you need to shield us in case anything goes wrong. And the government said, okay, we will shield you because we're asking you to rush this. But in the process of that, then the government also said, we want to be shielded too. So it's like, we're going to shield you because this might go wrong, but we also want the shield. And the only way you can break the shield really is if you find evidence of willful fraud. However, that's really difficult to do because they can delete emails, they can hide things, and also they subcontract the trials. So if a trial has fraud in it, as long as Pfizer or Moderna says we didn't know about the fraud, then they can't, it's not willful fraud.
Which they've argued in court already.
Yes.
December of 2005, this is under Bush. And if you go roll up a little bit, Rob, what does it say? PrEP provides $3.8 billion for pandemic influenza preparedness to protect public health in case of pandemic disease outbreak. Vaccine manufacturers, keyword, lobbied for the legislation, which would effectively preempt state vaccine safety laws in the case of an emergency declaration of HHS, which we had recently, by making clear they would not produce new vaccines unless the legislation was enacted. Injured parties are compensated by the CICP, which we talked about earlier, the Countermeasure Injury Compensation Program. And so far, the biggest payout has been $8,900, give or take. So
$9,000 to be generous.
$9,000 to be generous. So we have the Public Readiness and Emergency Preparedness Act. We have the Countermeasures Injury Compensation Program we just talked about. We have FDA's Emergency Use Authorization. Vaccine administered under the EUA are also covered by the PrEP Act. This legal framework facilitates the rapid deployment of vaccines while maintaining certain liability protections for manufacturers. And then you got, last but not least, Vaccine Injury Compensation Program, which is what you just talked about, right?
Yeah.
The VICP.
Can I tell you one other thing that's
Please.
kind of ironic is, so the CICP, they have spent $26 million in administrative costs investigating the 13 COVID vaccine claims they paid out. So they spent $26 million to distribute 48,000. So, and this is all, this is all data you can verify. I'm happy to send links afterwards, but this is what I've been living in DC, having these conversations, trying to find a pathway. And ultimately, they're just so well protected that unless a bill goes through, we need a hero, someone in House or Senate leadership to take this on and say, this is my priority and I want to do the right thing by these people that trusted the system and got thrown to the side. But that's very unlikely. So then the other option is we need a lawyer who comes in, someone like an Aaron Siri, who's extremely talented and can potentially find evidence of willful fraud And things like Bree's lawsuit help us because we can get discovery with these companies. And once we go through the discovery process, we can keep learning more and more.
Well, in addition to the AstraZeneca lawsuit, we've also teamed up with Aaron Siri to file 2 other lawsuits against the CICP and the PrEP Act. It was filed in Texas, and the other one was filed in the federal court in Louisiana, with several vaccine-injured individuals who have filed claims through the CICP program. And so the CICP program obviously is failing a lot of people. There's a lot of people that want to go after them for this, right, and hold them to account. So Aaron Siri is essentially challenging the constitutionality of
How do you spell
this
Aaron's
program.
name?
AaronSiri.
S-I-R-I. So Aaron and then S-I-R-I.
That's him. Yep.
Got it.
And he just barely was in Washington, D.C. earlier this week testifying
Yeah, if you go to
about
his Twitter,
this very issue.
If you go to his Twitter, he has a really good clip that was posted the other day from his testimony.
Yeah, this one. And that one's about Maddie.
Yeah, go back one more. I think there's one more other one.
Yep, this one right here.
Do you have any recommendations for Congress that in ways to ensure that the vaccine injured receive appropriate care and compensation?
The simplest way would just be to remove the immunity to the companies that make those products. It's now been many years that these products have been on the market. Everybody here is saying they're safe. A lot of the folks I've listened today say they're safe. Then there should be no reason to continue giving those companies the immunity to liability for injuries if they are safe, as has been advocated here today. Behind me is a representative from a group called React 19. This one group has over 36,000 seriously injured Americans from COVID-19 vaccine. It is run by 2 individuals. One was a clinical trial participant in the AstraZeneca. One received the Moderna vaccine. He was an orthopedic surgeon, had transverse myelitis. There are hundreds of medical professionals that are part of this group. They're a very serious organization. People always tell me, the folks who call your firm about vaccine injuries, they're anti-vaxxers. No, I assure you they're not, because the folks who have issues with vaccines don't get vaccines. They don't call us about vaccine injuries. It's only after they get injured they get gaslit in that way.
What a simple argument.
These folks deserve
Go
our
back
attention.
15 seconds. This is very important, guys. Go back, play, and just listen to what he just said here. Go ahead and play this clip.
And people always tell me, the folks who call your firm about vaccine injuries, they're anti-vaxxers. No, I assure you they're not, because the folks who have issues with vaccines don't get vaccines. They don't call us about vaccine injuries. It's only after they get injured they get gaslit in that way. These folks deserve our attention and our sympathy. Every person who's injured by a disease, whether it's COVID or any of the other diseases mentioned today, we should care about them. We should take care of them. We should care about every child injured by any infectious disease, like the doctor here treats. But we should also care about those injured by vaccine products, and we don't. The CICP, we currently have a lawsuit. We have 2 lawsuits pending right now, seeking to asking a federal judge to declare the CICP program and the PrEP Act immunity unconstitutional because, to your point, that program has 0 due process. You don't know who your trier of fact is. There's no opportunity for hearing. You don't know anything. It's basically a black hole. And they only have, and this is another thing Congress could potentially address, they only have a few $1 million. So even if they were not constitutionally process deficient, they don't have any money to pay anybody.
It makes a little too much sense what he's saying.
Yeah.
And one other thing too, just like kind of the David and Goliath aspect of this. In 2022, Pharma spent $372 million lobbying for these types of protections and provisions. React 19, our 4-month budget was $15,000 for lobbying. So I just lived there for the last 4 months, went head to head, tried to do this. Every time we go into an office, the pharma lobbyists are there to kind of clean up a little bit afterwards. And we're just trying our best to try to have this very logical argument. But
So let me ask you, did you watch the debate last night?
yeah, I did.
Did you watch the debate last
I
night?
was on the plane.
Okay, so you haven't watched it yet.
No.
Well, it's definitely entertaining for different reasons. But when you watched the debate last night, how many times did you hear accountability with Fauci, COVID, vaccine injured? How many times did that come up last night?
None. And I can tell you why.
Why is that?
Because Trump was responsible for Project Warp Speed, the Trump administration, and then Biden pushed the OSHA mandates and said it's going to be a long, hard winter for the unvaccinated if you don't get vaccinated, you're going to kill people. So both of them are complicit in this problem. And the only one that's actually saying anything about this is Kennedy.
And he wasn't there last night.
He wasn't there. He did his own live stream. I don't know if you saw that.
Oh, I spoke to him, and we had strategically, we spoke about what was the right move on what to do on that day. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
That's where we're stuck. Because in 2021, at the Ron Johnson roundtable we did, I talked to someone that's high up in DOD, and they said, the only way this is going to change is if a new administration comes in and can point the finger. Because that's what they love to do in politics, is they love pointing the finger and saying that guy was bad. But right now, both of them are complicit, so they can't point the finger.
So who is the most powerful man or woman right now, or organization, that wants to see you win?
Maybe you.
You're going to need a lot more than me. But honestly, who is the most powerful man or woman or organization that wants to see you win? I know people who do. We the people do.
Yeah.
They want to see what happened. But I'm talking actually leaders that would like to see that. I mean, you can say Rand Paul, but you need more than Rand Paul. You can say, many of these names, maybe Rogan, but you're going to need more than that. Who are people that want to get things done, that are willing to get behind it?
Well, what's interesting is I think there's that perspective of we need this one seminal figure, but in reality, we need like all these little emails sent out to the House representatives and to the senators, and basically showing there's a groundswell of support on the lower level. Because when I go into these meetings, I know we're up against pharma and it's going to be difficult. That's why I think litigation is our best chance. But from a constituency standpoint, the small emails, the small messages, like 5 people calling an office can make a difference. And that's the thing that people are afraid to talk about this subject because it's been so polarized. But then once you kind of explain it logically, and it's like, hey, there's a failed compensation system here. People did their part. They were injured. We should help them. Period.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing about, all these people that are vaccine injured, they're anti-vax. How the hell are you going to be anti-vax when you agree to take it? The only argument could be for some of the people that were forced to take it. I think even you had to take it, right? For traveling purposes or competing, or what was your reasoning for having to take it?
Yeah, I would say forced is the strong word.
Yeah.
But so I was running YouTube at the YouTube channel at the time that was focused on like teaching people how to mountain bike more safely. And one of our largest audience was people over 40 who are getting into it and maybe don't have the ability to crash and kind of learn the hard way. So they wanted skill instruction. And so we wanted to get vaccinated to travel and to protect the people at those clinics. Because at the time, it was said that if you got the vaccine, it would stop the spread, right? And so we were like, well, we're going to be around a lot of older people. We're going to be doing these clinics. Let's make sure that we have it. And that was kind of the reasoning. And
so if you wanted to go into that market and travel, you had to, or else you couldn't.
Yeah.
And you made that choice.
Yeah.
Got it. Got it. Yeah. To me, this was a very different kind of a position I was in. I was being asked by my board to hold a position to get everybody in the company vaccinated. And I said, look, to each his own, you do what you got to do. For me, I'm not comfortable with this limited amount of research. For many, many years, we used to read this book called this Bible Steroids Bible. And type in Bible steroids. And it was version 1, version 2, version 3, version 4. And we would read all of these books just to see what was up with steroids. And you're like, man, we don't have enough research right now for steroids, right? So some of these books were written 60 years ago, 50 years ago, 40 years ago. You want me to trust 9 months of clinical trials on a drug for me to put on my body, and I haven't seen what the side effects are on other people? I'm good. I'm not willing to do something like this. So for us, we somehow, some way, chose to go to a different route. My dad took it. My nanny took it, and she got all the boosters and everything else. But we decided to go a different position. Thank God nothing happened to my dad and my nanny. But we've heard some other stories that's going on. So, okay. So right now with where you're at, what's next? For a lot of people that are watching this, what's next? How can they help? How can they contribute?
Yeah, I mean, I want you to talk about your lawsuit more too, because I think the litigation standpoint is really our strongest pathway forward. And so Bree, with that contract law, can maybe get discovery and maybe help us in that way. The other thing is that at the end of the day, we need funding. And this is all grassroots run. We have 95% of the funds go directly to people that are injured. We've paid out over $850,000 in a care fund that's basically helping people get things like wheelchairs or treatments that they can't afford just to get their life back on. So React 19 has paid over $800,000 to the vaccine injured, whereas the U.S. government's paid $48,000.
Wow.
So, you know,
How much have you guys raised so far with React 19?
We're just under $1 million.
Under $1 million. In how long? In 2 years?
Yeah, just under 2 years.
In 2 years. Wow. And you paid out $850. And then there was also the other part, right, with the lawsuit. If you don't mind going a little bit more into the lawsuit.
So the lawsuits, unfortunately, because as Kyle illustrated very well, the government's broken. We all knew this. They're not going to help us. So because the drug companies failed us and the government failed us, we had no choice but to organize. We didn't do this just for fun. We did this out of necessity. After you meet a certain amount of people that all are dealing with the same syndromes, that are fighting for their lives, that literally can't get any help, that are now living in their cars because the government can't figure out how to pay anybody anything for a mandated product that's shielded, with from lawsuits directly to the manufacturer. There was no other pathway forward. So we were like, okay, well, we got to organize, make a proper 501c3 nonprofit, so then we can actually get hands into the people, money into the hands of the people that need it the most. But then also so we can get these lawsuits going, so we can organize and lobby appropriately on the Hill, so we can apply pressure where it needs to be applied. And that's what we've done with a very small shoestring budget. We've been able to do quite a bit. We've got 4 historic lawsuits going on. There's the 2 CACP lawsuits that Aaron Syria has filed. There's the censorship lawsuit that's specific to vaccine injury that has been green-lighted to move forward actually yesterday. And there's also this AstraZeneca lawsuit. But there's only one way that this is going to move forward, and it's on a very grassroots level with grassroots donations.
Yeah. And Pat, just one thing that's interesting is this has been done before. So
oh, for sure.
Well,
The question isn't that it's not been done before. Trust me. Can you guys commit to watching that movie in the next week?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can you commit to do that? And can you do me a favor? When you do, can you reach out to me? Because I want to talk to you after you watch the movie. Because to do what you guys want to do, there's 3 stages that they say, truth goes through. First, you're ridiculed. People laugh at you. You're crazy. And come on, guys. You're out of your mind. Like you guys are a bunch of anti-this, you're delusional. And then you're violently opposed, right? Right there. A German philosopher, said all truth goes through 3 stages. Ridicule, violent opposition, which he went through with that intermittent, windshield wiper. And then it's acceptance as self-evident. Unfortunately, sometimes phase 3 can take 10 to 20 years. So the most important asset to me are 2 different things. True believers that you attract and a high level of stubbornness where you're not willing to give up until you get to the bottom of this. The more you can attract people like that for this to become a reality, you need loud, like that lawyer you're talking about, you need more guys like that want to go out of their way to support. Mm-hmm. And then eventually, I said this last week on a podcast. I said, we were sitting right here, Rob, if you remember. I said, do you think investigating Fauci is in Trump's top 5? Remember that? And what did we say? I said, no. I said, do you think investigating Fauci is in Biden's top 5? It's not in his top 1,000, right? I bet it's higher on Trump's than it is in Biden's, right? But if you ask RFK, it's in his top 3. Unfortunately, neither the left or the right wanted him on the stage yesterday, period. The only thing I have that I would be interested in, which I don't even know if it'll happen or not, is as an environmental lawyer like him, he said yesterday, that, his encouragement is to have Biden step out. So he comes in and, he runs to represent the other side and et cetera, et cetera. There's no way in the world Biden's going to do that. You saw Jill Biden at the end saying, what a great job you did, Joe. You answered all the questions. And today, the Democrats' Twitter account, did you guys see what the Democrats' Twitter account was today? Can you go to it, Rob? This is their tweet today. Go the Democrats. Just type in the Democrats' Twitter account. you should see, go to right there. Zoom in. Elon Musk tweeted it. The winner of tonight's debate. By the way, this is their real. By the way, look how many views it got. Look at the tweet. 67 million views is what that got. So he's not going to do anything. He's not stepping away. So the only hope I have is if a Trump wins, who is more of an anti-establishment guy than Biden is. Trump's not an establishment guy. For Trump and RFK somehow to agree to bring in where it becomes a Warren Commission type of a deal, like, Twitter files where Elon brought Matt Taibbi and Barry Weiss, for Trump to bring RFK and say, here's the COVID files. Go tell us what you find.
Well, and one more thing to your point, too, is Biden appointed Califf as the FDA commissioner, and Califf is the one who granted Purdue Pharma the special use label for OxyContin. So you have the guy who helped kind of create the OxyContin thing. Now he stepped out. He worked for Purdue Pharma for years, and then Biden appointed him as the FDA commissioner. So to your point, I think there's nothing that's going to happen with the current administration, and that's what we keep seeing. And yeah, we need someone to advocate for us who can actually make something happen.
I think those two guys could do it. I think if let's just say, this is what I would be doing. Strategically, if I'm on the inside with Trump's camp, okay, I would go and invite RFK to Mar-a-Lago. You don't want to come to Mar-a-Lago? Let's have somewhere else a meeting where the story doesn't leak, okay? Let's meet in Miami. Let's meet in Carolina. Tell us. Let's meet. Here's what the meeting's about. Look, man, they're not going to let you win, okay? What's more important to you? Being in the debate and keeping 6-7 points and losing and not being able to do anything, or dropping out right now and I publicly announce that I'm going to hire you as the guy that's going to lead the Warren Commission type to investigate what's most important to you, that you had this case against Fauci, the book that you wrote. How about if we do that? Would you be open to that idea? I think the right person presenting that argument to RFK and to Bobby, I think he'll be open to it. Then, for Trump to keep his word and publicly announce after RFK drops out, here's what we're going to be doing. We are very proud to bring Bobby in here. He's not a Republican. We all know that. He's an independent. But in the last few years, he's just made one too many arguments that a lot of people are concerned about, and we want to know. You bring him in. Do you know what would happen if that kind of a... By the way, that day... I'm convinced that day it's over.
I agree.
Well, did you know that already kind of tried to happen in 2016, where Kennedy was brought in and then John Bolton basically ushered him out quickly thereafter?
Well, Bolton's not here right now. So, I mean, everybody now knows what Bolton's all about.
Yeah.
What 16-year-olds watch for, they get a kick out of, pornography. To him, porn is war. Mm. He wants war. He wants more of that. He lost credibility. He's nowhere here where he's not that. He's just fiending for that. He lost a lot of credibility the last 6, 7, 8 years. But to me, in this situation, when it comes down to today, I think that's the proper way to negotiate. I think there's a couple right people that can sit down and have that conversation with Bobby. I think Bobby's score for being reasonable is very high. And Bobby's score for being stubborn is higher. But that's what an environmental lawyer does.
Yeah. Well, and like you said, who's the person that's the highest on the totem pole fighting for us? And I would say it's him.
I think that's the guy.
Yeah.
Hands down right now.
But I think that guy needs to be empowered. And Bobby needs to answer one question. Bobby, what's more important to you? Being a president with the way it's going right now, or getting to the bottom of what the hell they did with COVID? I think deep down inside to Bobby, it's two. I think Bobby's a fighter, and he wants to go prove himself right, that what he did, the research, he's right.
Yeah.
And I would do anything within my power to be able to broker that deal for that to happen. If I was in any way involved, they don't need me. They can do it themselves. But I think that would be one way to go. And by the way, it's interesting. While we're going through AstraZeneca, I found something very interesting. Rob, can you pull this up? I found this on Reuters, and I don't know if you guys knew this or not. I just texted it to you, Rob. This is one interesting fact about AstraZeneca. Do you have it, Rob? I just texted it to you. So I'm looking around, seeing what AstraZeneca is all about and what they're doing. And then I find this article. And it says, AstraZeneca will seek to love the Communist Party. Did you see this?
No.
Okay, so let me show this to you. It's China boss of AstraZeneca said, we will seek to love the Communist Party. Go a little lower. Okay, so global drug maker AstraZeneca will seek to be a patriotic company in China that loves the Communist Party. It's China president said on Friday. Wang Lei, who is also company's global executive vice president, made the comment at an event in the eastern city of Wuxi to celebrate the drug maker's 30th year in China, according to a person familiar with the matter. While many local companies have in recent years pledged allegiance in the ruling of Chinese Communist Party, President Xi Jinping has strengthened its social and economic role. Such messaging is still unusual from foreign ones. Go a little lower, Rob. And it continues, build a local transitional company that loves the Communist Party and loves the country. Wang said in his presentation to an audience of a few hundred participants, photographs show the word flashing across the screen behind him in response to questions from Reuters on whether Wang's pledge and the contents of presentation were approved by AstraZeneca senior management. A spokesperson at the company's headquarters in Cambridge declined to comment. So kind of strange, where we still don't know where COVID came from. That investigation still hasn't been done. I'm curious. A lot of people are curious. The world stopped. We lost trillions of dollars. You know, in the video, when I watched the video, when you're getting emotional, you said you missed Christmas. You didn't buy gifts for your kids. You missed those times because of 7 months being bedridden. You know, and even one of the pictures you showed, all of you guys seem like you're hiking. You're somewhere. You're hiking wherever you guys were at. Yellowstone. But I would have called you guys weird because you're hiking and you got a mask on.
Yes. And I look at that photo now.
But you don't even know how much more your story gives it credibility.
Yeah.
I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. When I saw people like you, I'm like, look at these weird people. You're outdoors and you got a freaking mask on. So you were like people that were fully for it.
Yes.
And now you're going through it. And
I got to tell you, I mean, the only reason that we're doing any of this is because I've lived and seen the disaster firsthand with my own eyes. I wouldn't have believed anything that I was saying unless I had lived through it myself. What the NIH did, what the FDA did, the drug company did, all of it. One of those things, one of those threads should be investigated and those people should be held to account, let alone all of them. And then you add on top of that the fact that nobody's talking about any of it. And we're just going to sweep it under the rug. Everybody just close your eyes and pretend COVID didn't exist. It's toxic. Nobody likes COVID. Everybody is tired of talking about it. But this will happen again in a different form if we don't face this and address this now. And just like the opioid crisis, big tobacco, all of the other, things that are similar to this, they are continuing to build on these as they go. And the laws are continuing to strip away the rights of the American people and give our rights to pharmaceutical companies and big corporations. And so now that we see this acutely and we understand this perfectly, crystal clear, we're going to do everything we can to make sure that we at least are a very clear barrier in the pathway of these big corporations that want nothing more than for us to go away and die quietly.
Yeah. And you know what? I'm thinking about the immunity part where he said, all we have to do is get rid of it. You guys keep saying it's safe. So what are you worried about? It's so safe. Let's just get rid of it, right? But I can also see in the negotiation room. Here's how the negotiation room would work. I'm going to play both roles. I'm going to play the government and I'm going to play the insurance companies, big pharma, right? Hey, Pfizer, we need this vaccine in 9 months. Yeah, man, we need at least 3.5 years. No, we need it in 9 months. I can't give that to you. 100 million people could die. What do you mean you can't give it to me? Look, in 9 months, for me to give you what you want in 9 months, it's not fully safe yet. There could be a lot of risks. There could be a lot of issues. Well, what are you saying? Well, if you're willing to take the risk and the cost that comes with it, then yes, we'll give you our best product that we have in 9 months, but there's no way I'm going to give you the product and have the risk be on me if I can't get the 3.5 years. We need it right now. Then give me immunity. Well, you know what? Just give it to them. No problem. We'll do it. That's how I visualize that negotiation going.
And then
because these guys want the victory to make the announcement, right? And these guys are being cornered, and they're professional business people. They're negotiators. These guys negotiate policies. These guys negotiate money and deals, right? Broker and deals. So they're going to say, yeah, we'll give you the one that will have 9, and we'll take full liability if you give us 3.5 years. No, I want it in 9 months. It's like wanting to build a building, and the builder tells you, you want me to build it which way? I want it to be this. I want it to be hurricane-proof, and I want it to be this. I want it to be this. I want it to be You want this? It's going to take us 2.5 years to build it. No, I need it in 9 months. No. In 9 months, a tornado is going to destroy this thing. It's not hurricane-proof. I need it no matter what. No problem. I'm going to give you a shitty product. So I think there's an element of that negotiation where sometimes, you can force to have a product being delivered soon that's a shitty product. It's the MVP. And I think this COVID vaccine shot was an MVP. And I don't put the responsibility and the onus on one side. I put it on both sides. I just simply go into negotiate them, and I feel something like that took place.
Well, and that's totally fair. And then the thing that kind of is a little different is that the government said, okay, we're going to shield you, but we're also going to shield us. So we're going to take your liability risk, and we're going to shield us too. And then just...
How did they shield themselves?
You can't sue the government, and they didn't put a proper compensation program in place.
All the way, that's the other part of the PrEP Act. So the PrEP Act, you can't sue the drug company. You cannot sue health officials for willful misconduct. You cannot sue the health agencies at all. And you can't even sue the guy that put the shot in your arm.
Yeah, then if that's the case, I'm not a lawyer, but I can argue that.
Yeah.
Meaning, if I'm a lawyer right now, this is what I did for a living, I would easily want to go make the argument for that, because that just doesn't make any sense to me.
Not at all.
There is no, even insurance companies rely on reinsurance companies. In the history of insurance companies, I won't say never, but you can say, go find a life insurance company that went out of business, that a life insurance policy wasn't paid out. Good luck finding it. Why? The only stories you will find is, well, they came back, and when they did the autopsy or when they did this, they said the guy smoked. So because of that, he was in a 2-year incontestability, and They didn't pay the $250,000. All they did is pay out the, premium of $6,000 they pay. Okay, those kinds of cases you're going to get, because the job of a lawyer that works for an insurance company is to investigate so they don't pay the entire insurance amount to you. You were driving, you did this. No, we're not going to pay the whole thing. It's only $22,000. You got to pay the other $7,000. That's the job of the investigator that does that. But the reason why most life insurance companies always pay out the death benefit is because they also rely on another reinsurance company. So if insurance companies have reinsurance, why wouldn't we have this? If pharmaceutical companies need a reinsurance, and in this case, the reinsurance has to be the government, but so then the government is really us, the taxpayers. Yeah,
Yeah, that's where this term reasonable alternative remedy, that's what is really important here, because the government said, we're going to basically take the liability risk and we're going to provide a reasonable alternative remedy with the CICP program. And we are suing, saying that because there's no right to due process, no right to an appeal, no right to an attorney, that is not a reasonable alternative remedy. And the fact that they paid $9,000 is the highest settlement.
No,
that's not a reasonable alternative remedy.
This just doesn't make any sense. So to me, logically, this doesn't make any sense in free market or the U.S. government. They have to figure out a solution for this. If you're coming out with $2.1 trillion this, you can say, we're going to set aside $2 billion of it to protect any injuries that could happen with this. Okay, cool. That makes sense to me. As a taxpayer, fine. I got you. I'm okay with that, right? But we're comfortable sending $200 billion to Ukraine, but we don't want to take care of our people in America that are maybe injured. It's a little confusing. Yeah. So as a patriot, I can't make that argument. I can say the following. Say you're a U.S. president. I can say, okay, guys, here's what we have. Here's what we have. I can get the vaccine done for you before the end of the year. It's going to take 9 months. If you want to take it, it can help you, possibly, with COVID. You're better off with your body taking it at 3.5 year mark, okay? But if you're that worried about it, we have something that's Project Warp Speed. Take it at, you got to take the risk that comes with it. If you do get injured, this $2 trillion that we're doing, the government is setting aside $2 billion for any injuries that may take place. But you are choosing to take the vaccine, and there is risk that you're taking with this, not on us. You can wait 3.5 years, or we can go. If I'm a voter, I'm sitting there and I see my president approach me that way, you know what I would say? Okay, cool. I'm good with that. You know what? I'll wait. I'll wait 2 years. No problem. It's probably going to be safer. But the faster you take the vaccine, the less safer it's going to be. Then the husband and wife have to sit there and have the conversation together. I think that's common sense. And I hope you guys find some true believers and more stubborn people to keep pursuing this. Brienne, it's been a pleasure listening to your story face to face. You are somebody I watched on the video and the world saw when you shared that testimony and story. And a lot of people sympathize with you that you've gone through it. I applaud your husband, and wherever you are watching this, brother, I don't know you, respect. I saw one interview that you did. I don't know who you were sitting down with, but you also did an interview where you were being asked questions. I watched your podcast as well. I watched a couple of the stuff that you did in the past. I respect you tremendously as a husband and a father while this is taking place for you to do that. Much love to you, much respect to you. Kids that are going through it, you have to know sometimes God puts you through something because you guys are going to be future leaders. Who knows? Maybe one day we're going to vote for you guys because this is going to inspire you to do something special with your life that we'll learn about 20, 30 years from now while we're in our 70s. I'm excited to see what you guys are going to be doing. I appreciate you coming out and sharing your story as well and the fact that more of you guys are finding each other. We're going to put the link below to the organization that you guys have. Rob, can you do that where for the people on spot? Where can they find you guys, by the way?
The react19.org.
Is it the React or React 19?
React and the numbers 19.org.
Got it. So REACT, like React, 19.org. All the information is there. We're going to put that on the chat, the description, and the comment sections. Go to it, learn about it, support them if this is something that's important to you. And if you have other people that are going through this as well, share this interview with them so they can learn more about how they can help. And to those of you that are super stubborn and super true believer, definitely get a hold of these guys and help them in any way you can. Final thoughts before we wrap up.
No, I think that was great.
I have just one thing to say that was kind of interesting during this period. You know, we got to talk to Peter Marks at one point, who's the head of biologics at FDA. And I asked him, you guys keep saying all these things are rare. Like, what is rare? How do you define rare? He said, well, technically, we don't have a definition for the term rare. It could be anything from 1 in 1,000 to 1 in a million, just depending on the product. And I think that's very interesting that you have this thing keep happening. They say, oh, it's rare, don't worry about it, but they don't even define what that is. And so we're in this kind of gray area. And I appreciate you having us on, and we're just trying our best to get the truth out and just get more people on board.
Yeah.
This was very helpful just to hear this. And I think nothing about this was like, oh, you know, they're this and they're that and they're Trump supporters and they're... Nope, I didn't get any of those vibes. I just get the vibe that you're a Trump supporter wouldn't have missed yesterday's debate and would have woken up today and you would have watched a debate first thing in the morning. So we know you're not one. A Trump supporter wouldn't have said RFK is the only candidate, which you sounded like you're supporting there. So for some of you guys that kind of you twitch when you hear stuff like that, you guys seem very reasonable, and I appreciate you guys to coming out here and sharing your testimony. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye, bye-bye. So if the testimony with Brienne, Dressen, and Kyle Warner is causing you to have some questions, you want to get in touch with them, you want to support what they're doing, you can. You can officially ask them a direct question on Connect. All you have to do is click on that QR code, download the app, ask them any questions you may have, whether you're going through this personally or you want to find a way to support or you got additional questions. You can connect them officially now on the app.